Okay, guys, so step 4 in owning the victory is going to be being at peace with what you did, accepting that this is good enough for the time being, being okay with your efforts, being at peace with what you did, accepting what you did. Okay? So here's what I'm getting at. Perfect example. Your goal is to read a book. Okay? And you say, I'm going to devote 90 minutes a night to reading. Okay? And you got about 75 minutes of actual reading done that night, and you're nodding off time for bed. Okay. Are you able to look at yourself and look at that situation and say, you know what? This is the best I can do today, and I'm okay with that. Given the set of circumstances, I did as much as I could, and that is good. That is enough. That is okay. You got to be at peace with what you did. You got to say, this is good enough. Okay? Why is this the last step? Because the thing is that, like I said, going back to my analogy, that I can come up with a reason to not feel good about something. One of the reasons I always used to come up with is I would say, well, I'm so many weeks behind, and I maybe got 3 days worth of work done today. Well, I'm still so many weeks behind. It's like, you just said you got 3 days worth of work done in one day. Yes, you are still behind. But would you say that it's better that you got those 3 days done than not? You have to be at peace with what you did. You have to be okay with what you did. It has to be good enough. So, like I said, if your objective is to read a book and you're saying, well, I'm still not finished with it, yeah, but you read 90 minutes. And that's all you could do today, right? Maybe your back started really screaming. Maybe you had an upset stomach. If that's the best you can do in that situation, then you have to accept that. Because if you're going to come up with a reason to say, oh, well, I'm still so far away from my goal, well, buddy, you know what? You're never going to get to your goal. I'll just put it to you that way. If your goal is to win the NBA championship and, you end up, beating the Lakers or you end up beating the Warriors, and you can't say, well, yeah, but we still got tomorrow's game. Well, yeah, but you still won today. That's still a W in your record. So you have to be okay with what you did. If you set the goal so high and make it so unattainable, is it any wonder why you're always disappointed? If you say that I want to walk 1,000,000 miles, that's a long one. I'm not going to dispute that. How about we just pull that back and just say, you know what? Maybe I want to do a 1K. And the best way I can do that is every day I'm going to walk around the block for 90 minutes. That doing that 90 minutes is getting you one step closer. And there's only so much you can do in 24 hours, and that is not discounting you, that is, and nor is that excusing you. Okay, there's only so much you can do in a given day. You cannot raise the Titanic in a day. If you know how to, more power to you. I don't know how to. You've got to be okay with what you did. If you say your objective is to read the whole book, then you've got to say, you know what? I'm happy I read that one chapter. Maybe tomorrow night we can get through a second chapter. And maybe the night after that we can get through the third chapter. But you can't sit there at chapter 1 and say, well, I still haven't read the whole thing. Yeah, you can't. No one's expecting you to, nor should you. Find a way to be at peace. Find a way to be happy with what you're doing. Say, you know what? This is the best I could do in this situation. It's better that I did this rather than I did nothing. If you can get to that point, what's going to happen is, number one, you're going to stop fighting yourself. It's not, and then things are going to stop being an uphill battle. Yeah, you might be 2-3 weeks behind, buddy. I'm right there with you. But God damn it, if you're able to start gaining momentum, if you're able to start making up for lost time, that's a hell of an improvement. And if you can start stringing together days of making up for lost time, well, you know what? You might only be a couple days late instead of a couple weeks late. Isn't that better? I think it is. When it's all said and done, you started off 2 weeks behind schedule. That's the setup. 2 weeks behind schedule. And you locked in Monday morning. You got a couple that you found a really good groove, and you got 3 days of work done there. Day number 2, Tuesday morning, lock in. You got another 3 days of work done, right? And then maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you only got 1 day of work done on them. But guess what? Yes, you were 2 weeks behind. Now you might only be 1 week behind. Or you might be a week and a half behind. That's an improvement. And if you're able to squeak out a couple extra efforts, if you're able to squeak out a couple extra days, you might only be a couple days behind when it comes time to get it taken care of. Right? You started out the equation 2 weeks behind. If you're able to make up for lost time, you might only be a day or two behind. But you had to be okay by getting that initial work done. Okay? You were 2 weeks behind. Day number 1, you finally logged in and got 3 days worth of work done. You got to be okay with those 3 days. If you can't accept or own those 3 days, you're just going to keep cascading downwards. You've got to be okay, and you got to be at peace with the efforts you made in that day. Now, like I said, and then you know what, maybe Friday, old habits die hard, maybe Friday after lunch, I don't know, maybe you fell asleep, who knows. It's okay. I mean, well, that's not okay, but could be worse. There you go, could be worse. So you have to be at peace with what you did. You know, if, like I said, if your objective is to read for 90 minutes a night and you read your 90 minutes, you have to be okay with that. Yes, you still have the rest of the book to read, but you are now 90 minutes closer to being done. And worst case scenario, if you only read for an hour, you're an hour closer to being done. That's better than 0 minutes closer to being done, wouldn't you say? I say so. If my objective is to complete a task, any movement towards completion of that task is a victory, even if it's an incomplete task. Right? So, my objective might have been to, load the dishwasher every night. And if maybe my back was screaming Thursday afternoon and I had to take a half a day and I had to hit the bed and I was laying on a heating pack, screaming for dear life. Yeah, given the circumstances, I think that's understandable that you wouldn't be able to load the dishwasher that day. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe you just forgot. It happens. But like I said, any effort towards a goal, any progress towards a goal is better than no effort and no progress. That's why you have to be at peace with what you did. You have to be okay with what you did. That you are now closer to your goal. You are closer to your outcome. There was a phrase that I used to use when one of my buddies would get really upset. And maybe I never actually used it. Maybe I just thought I told him. I don't know. It doesn't matter. How was Rome built? How was Rome built? One brick at a time. If all you could do was get a couple of bricks put up a day, that's better than getting no bricks put up. Maybe tomorrow you'll be able to make up and catch up for lost time. Or maybe a week from now you'll be able to catch up, but you got to keep pushing. And you got to be okay with how far you were able to push. You got to be okay. You got to be at peace. And that for me was always one of the final roadblocks before I truly owned something. Before I truly owned the victory. Was looking at myself and saying, okay, I want to read the whole book, but I can only read it one page at a time. I got 10 pages done. That's enough for now. Now, like I said, that's the context of my situation. If your lives are on the line, like I said, if you're doing any sort of medical or engineering or structural, then yeah, you guys probably got a little bit of a higher standard to follow. But just talking for myself and people in similar situations, which I'm sure there's a couple of you out there. But like I said, step 4 to owning the victory is being okay with what you did, accepting what you did, being at peace with what you did. That it's not going to be the entire thing, but you are closer. Like I said, your goal is to read a book. If you read 90 pages, that is 90 pages closer to reading the entire thing. That's good. You have to accept that. All right, so we're going to pull this together for the outro video, and hopefully we're going to be able to move on to the next topic. I will see you then.